This is a prime example on how impactful a proper mixing approach to the success of a song is. Hello there, girls and boys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna be reacting to a song that when I listened to for the first time totally knocked my socks off. We're talking about Locked Out of Heaven by Bruno Mars. But I gotta tell you that I love this song. It's a great track, and the album in general is very good as well. So this is gonna be, of course, a positive review as usual, but from the perspective of someone who actually liked the track. So if that's your jam, let's get into it. But before we go, if this is your first time on the channel, I welcome you because in here we analyze the music that we love from the perspective of an active musician and professional music producer, using language that everybody can understand, in a way to expand our knowledge when it comes to music production and songwriting. So if that's your jam, let's rock and roll. So here you go, girls and boys, Locked Out of Heaven by Bruno Mars. Okay, I gotta be honest with you, girls and boys. It's been several years, if not almost a decade, since I actually listened to this track with this level of attention, being very frank. I remember it being good, and I also remember asking myself what kind of The Police this is, because I thought that it was a The Police track that I never heard before in my life. And why am I making such a claim? Well, the guitar, the drums, everything sounds quite close to what The Police sound is. And particularly the singing, even though it's quite clear that it's not Sting singing, the range and the pitch is quite similar. Of course, I'm taking you back to the very first moment in which I heard this track. And I was drinking with a girl in a bar, and I wasn't paying that much of attention, to be frank. But the song, it's catchy. That's the first thing that I thought to myself. Then, I also said to myself, wait a second, this is actually very well produced. There are actual instruments being used. The singer is actually good. The song structure is following a nice, actually intelligent pattern. And there is some form of dynamics. Dynamics is the difference between the lower, the points on which the volume is the lowest when compared to the highest. And you can feel the difference between the chorus and the verse. What kind of pop music this is, I asked myself. I thought that we were going back to the 80s when pop music was actually, even though pop, extremely well crafted for a good chunk of it. No, hashtag not all, okay? And then I asked the girl if she knew the song, and of course the song was hot back then, like her. And she told me that it was Bruno Mars. I didn't know the guy at that point. And I did some research and I found that this is the record from which this song is pulled off. And I listened to the entire record and I was like, okay, this is good. This gave me some form of hope for the future of pop music. How wrong I was. But then, going back to the song itself, I am quite mesmerized and amazed by how extremely well used the stereo field is. You saw me showing you when the screen was on. the stereo field analyzer, and I was coming back and forth with it. And what it does is showing you the reaction of the. You saw those lines, right? That those lines represents the sound and the sound that is coming out of the speakers and how much is leaning to one side or the other. Most of the time, the interaction, that line, it's centered because it's spread across the stereo spectrum. But you see differences when there is a loud signal coming from one side to the other, and that ooh, 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 ooh thing coming from one side to the other. Excellent. And it took me by surprise. This is actually a genuine reaction, if you wish, okay, to those elements. Now, what I was totally aware of was the beautiful recording of the track. The drums sound amazing. It's the first thing that actually got my attention when I began listening to this track. When I was listening to this record by my own, because it sounds organic. It took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting that from a major pop release. Then the guitar, okay, got electric guitar and not just doing the gimmick stuff. It's actually very funky sounding, a little bit like Nile Rodgers. But with tons of a little bit of reggae influences and tons and tons and tons and tons of totally not ripping off the Police. And I happen to be a huge fan of the Police, and I like this track just by that. But then I kept listening to the track and I realized that the singing is excellent. Bruno Mars, I think, is a great singer. And also, from I have seen from him on the internet, he seems to be a really good performer. If you happen to be a Bruno Mars fan and if you happen to have seen him live, please let me know what you think about his performance, because in my head, he seems to be a very good performer. Actually, just as a joke, I tend to call him Millennial Michael Jackson, but not because of this album, because of the other song that I do love from him that I will be reacting to later on the channel. But more on that story later. But coming back to this track, I want you to pay attention to the most obvious effects. This time around, we're not going to be talking about reverb for those of you who are fans of this channel. No, I want you to pay attention to compression. Compression is a different type of effect. This is going to be quite hard for you to listen, okay? But if you pay attention to it, you're going to find it. What the compressor does, it's... you remember when I mentioned dynamics, okay? Every sound in the world has a quiet point and a highest point. The highest point is known as the peak. And a compressor gets the peaks and squashes them, lowers the volume automatically of those peaks while the signal is coming through. You're gonna hear that on many instruments across music recording and music production, music mixing. But in here, it's done in such a great taste. You don't hear it, but you're gonna feel it. And it's gonna be quite amusing and kinda extremely musical, because it sounds organic, but at the same time controlled. If you wanna have a more a reference point, imagine whenever you're talking to someone on the phone and they are speaking normally and all of a sudden they began shouting. The compressor will squash that shout and it will create a sound that it's even in volume, but you're gonna hear the squashiness. And at the same time, it's gonna bring up the quieter parts, trying to equalize, for a lack of a better term, the differences and the disparities of the sound. I applied a compressor to my voice the entirety of this explanation, and I even kept the visual. You saw it on this side of the screen of the compressor affecting the sound of my voice. Now it's removed, and you can see that I'm talking quieter, louder. You get it, right? Good. You're gonna find that effect particularly on the bass, on the kick drum, and the vocals. Yeah. And see how even but nice everything sounds. It's enhancing the performance. So pay attention to that. From here onwards, I'm gonna keep playing the track, and now once we hit the next section of this analysis, I will give you my impressions of the mix, because it's actually wild. Let's continue. Here we go.
'cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven for too long, for too long. Yeah, you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven for too long, for too long. Can I just stay here, spend the rest of my days here? Can I just stay here, spend the rest of my days here? 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven for too long, for too long. Yeah, you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven for too long, for too long. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh.
Okay, you know that I usually try to divide these reactions into three sections, but I decided to keep going because of how integral the groove is to the song. It's quite fun, engaging, and the ending in particular, emotionally speaking, has this kind of, how can I put it? It actually makes you feel something, right? It's kind of emotional at the end, and that's something that it actually blew me out of my comfort zone when I listened to it for the first time, because and of course paying attention to it, because the track itself sounds like a fun, catchy, like carefree song, but then that final section, that's due to the harmonic progression. Okay, the chord progression there is quite dramatic. The orchestration is very good. You saw me doing this because when the toms, the floor toms and the toms on the top of the drum kit were used, you could hear an effect used on it. And this effect is now finally talking about it, and you know that it was bound to happen. We're talking about reverb, and it sounds like this. Reverb. But you saw that it's on the toms, it's overblown. It sounds incredibly big because it makes the sound of the toms feel gigantic, larger than life. That brings a lot of extra motion. It feels like more dramatic because you're adding more tension to the track. Very well done. Now, speaking of which, let's take a look at the screen now. This, girls and boys, for those of you who are new to this channel, is Decibel, and this is the tool that we use to analyze music through the use of a visual medium. The first section that we're going to be using, for those of you who have been following the channel for long enough, well, you know, because you know, but those of you who are new, this is the frequency range analyzer, and this is what allows us to see the frequencies that are part of our track in volume throughout the entirety of the frequency range that is audible to us, human beings. We got 20,000, which is the lowest, all the way down to 20,000. So, sorry, 20 to 20,000. The under 20 is subsonic, above 20,000, supersonic. And you can see, and this is actually not surprising, yet kind of surprising, at least to me, because I'm a nerd. There is a huge low-end representation, this area over here, because this is a very bass-driven track, and also this is a modern production. This is coming from 2012. So you got already all of those kind of very over-the-top, pristine, hi-fi, and punchy and loud recordings that were still quite common back in 2012. And I know 2012 was 12 years ago by the time of this recording. It's insane. But what makes me interested on this track is the fact that the kick drum sounds super organic. It's not a big kick drum. It sounds tiny, don't you think? It's not that over the top compared to any record by Katy Perry from that era, and this sounds way too small. But even though we feel the sound of the kick drum is small, we got a huge low end, and that's due to the fact that it's being driven by the bass. That's why you see this line over here. And also, This is very, very cool. This is actually very, very cool. The sound of the track to me, it's quite close to what all of those funk artists from the 70s sounded like. We're talking about your Marvin Gaye's, Chic. I know that Chic might be referred to as disco. No, it's funk, at least to my in my heart. Fanboy. Also, who else? James Brown, and even the Motown style of or the Motown era, they tend to have that kind of warm tone to it, and this track has that vibe. Warm is not as attack driven, okay? It's not that defined. It feels cozy, yet dancing, and it's due to this. There is very little high end. High end, to our human ears, is where we will find, among many things, the definition of the notes being played. And you have maybe heard me saying at times, this sounds dark, this sounds bright. When I say, or and musicians, this is actually musician terminology, musician lingo, if you wish. When you say, or when you refer to a sound being bright, it's because it has plenty of high end. When it's dark, it's the opposite. But it could be due to it having a huge bump on low end when compared to high end, or it's the high end is removed. And in this case, we have a mix of both. Cymbals, they are bright by nature, but they feel kind of cozy, kind of not that right? And it's due to this because it has a very, very pronounced roll off of the high end. Plus the kit used and the recording studio. And if you happen to know where this recording took place, let me know in the comment section below because I'm a huge sucker for that kind of information. Well, that's what I do for a living. And then we got the mid range. And not surprising at all, we got here, and this is actually Bruno Mars's song, Bruno Mars's vocals. Why? Because they are loud and loud in the mix. And speaking of which, I think that's a great choice. I am making a comment on this because when mixing music, you have to cater to the style of the genre. Rock music, you tend to have, for obvious reasons, bombastic drums and huge guitars. In pop music, you get huge kick drum, huge bass, and loud as F vocals. But in here we got a very mild, well-represented band. It's kind of like a mix between a rock mixing approach with a pop mixing approach. This is fantastic, and you got this. This song was not such a big record, a big success, not due to the quality of the track itself, which is fantastic, but also because this is a prime example, and I'm gonna go big. This is a prime example on how impactful a proper mixing approach to the success of a song is, because a good chunk of the song's success came from the mixing decisions. The decisions made during the mixing session, if I put it better. Yeah. So let's take a look at the second half of our analyzer, and this is the fun part. This is, at least for me, the big nerd that I am, this is known as the frequency, not the frequency, this is the dynamic range analyzer. And in here you can see these two blobs. Each of those blobs represent the two sections of the track playing while we were listening to it. This is, as I mentioned during the introduction to this video, this is showing us the relationship between the quietest part in volume with the highest or the loudest parts in volume throughout time. That's dynamic range. And that's important because depending on the loudness of a section, we're gonna feel it. If it's quieter, it tends to have an effect on us that makes us react to it like if it was more ethereal or intimate. While if it goes loud, it becomes more exciting and more engaging and drives our attention once again back to the sound. And a good use of both makes a song great and interesting. And happily enough, this is a good example of it. Look at that. I'm saying that based on my reaction to a pop record. Who would have thought? But this is a good song. Look, this is the beginning. Of course, this song is kind of high octane, it's kind of energetic and vibey, but you can see here that this section is clearly the first chorus. See how loud the track becomes. And that's why it drives your attention back to the song. And also makes you feel that the stakes are higher at this stage of the track. Then let me take you to the second section. See, I'm gonna bring back the mouse and I'm gonna put it on top of the chorus, the first chorus. See how much the difference in volume is at this stage when compared to the second verse. It basically speaking came back to the original, and it can be felt when the track is playing. But then it takes us to the next chorus, brings us back to the loudest section, to the same loudness stage, but the song progressively speaking keeps the same momentum when it comes to loudness, just for it to drop at the very end. And it's kind of interesting because you might be expecting a huge payoff, a huge grand finale for this track, but no, it comes back to its humble origins. How clever that is. It kind of breaks or destroys your expectations, and in a good way. Clever. And this is the loudness is not due to the song just being pushed louder at that section. It's part of it, but you also have to remember that this is when we add more instruments to the song in great taste. You saw me reacting to the synthesizer. Also, we added great vocal chops, vocal takes, especially with a vocal arrangement that was yeah. That section was badass. And we also got the toms, the gigantic toms. And even though I always thought that it was an electric guitar, well, the electric guitar being used, having or going a little bit more rock and roll and adding distortion, it's not this guitar. There is another synthesizer added for the choruses that has distortion to it, and it's a little bit more aggressive sounding, and that makes the song feel bigger. Such a great production, damn it. And basically speaking, that is. You see that the song keeps the momentum. This is the build-up, where they do the desobligado, and for it to finish off by bang, bang, bringing us back to the beginning. Insane. I gotta say that Bruno Mars totally knocked the ball out of the park with this one. I think he, even though he's popular, don't know how popular he still is, being frank. I'm not, for obvious reasons, sort of speaking the target audience, but I can't stop praising the guy. This is a fantastic record, and I happen to like his music in general. But I'm not in the sphere, in the pop sphere, if you know what I mean. So let me know if you think that he's overrated, underrated, or anything in between. Also, if you happen to know the name of the musicians that were part of this recording, please let me know, because I love the guitar. The tone of the guitar is fantastic. Also, I love the drumming. The drumming is just groovy and doing what it's meant to do, while having those moments of creativity that are adding those beautiful transitions between sections in the track. So good. So please tell me the name of those guys, because I'm very bad at it, and it would be nice to at least I know who I should pay my homage to and my respects to whenever I listen to this track, because badass. Okay, let me know what you think about the analysis itself, and if you happen to be new to this channel, thank you for watching, thank you for joining, and if you happen to like this kind of content, the best way to support this kind of content and this channel is by not only subscribing, leaving a like and leaving a comment, and ringing the freaking bell, because otherwise the rest doesn't do anything, believe me. Is by listening to music on Apple Music or Spotify, which is totally not like Bruno Mars, I can tell you that. And also by following us on X and Instagram, because that's the best way for you to get in touch with us in a much more personal basis. Now, girls and boys, as every single time I meet you, I gotta remind you something. Never, ever, ever let anybody tell you what to dream about. Remember that I will see you when I see you.